Good to see you this morning. Before we obviously go outside for boot camp, we've got the workshop today, which is simply looking at 5 simple steps to weight loss. I might have got a bit carried away, and as you can probably see there, we might have 9 rather than the 5, but we're going to stick to the 5 because it's a catchy title. So can I ask, actually first off, what I want this to be is more of a discussion. So I've got some really simple slides up here where I'm going to bring up the title. I've got a couple of key points on this, but I want this to be a two-way discussion rather than necessarily a presentation. So think about yourself, any questions you've got as we go, fire them out. Never a bad question, because if you're thinking it, it's more probable somebody else in the room is thinking it. And if it is a really stupid question, I'll just laugh at you and probably make you press ups. Cool. So let's get started. Okay, so if we were to kick off.
Sorry?
Ooh.
It's hard to get there.
Absolutely. So if we were to kick off with hydration, okay, so these, what we're going to go through, the first few are simple pieces that you can bring into your life. And to be honest, the majority of this should be really, really simple stuff. And I hope you actually know all of it already, so you can leave this room going, oh, I didn't actually learn anything today because I already knew all that stuff. But the really important part, it's great knowing it, it's actually applying it where the difficulty comes in. Yeah, everyone agreed on that? So what today is all about, hopefully it's just a little reminder, and you can look at these and go, I knew that, but am I applying it? Yeah, nice and simple. So that's where we want to be. So hydration, massive part of it. Who's got a water bottle with them today? Show of hands. Everybody. Good. I even brought mine. It's a demonstration. So really, really important in everyday life, and that's before exercise. With this, for example, hot weather as well, that just extends it. So your body is made up of 70% water. Yeah, we all pretty much know that. Yeah, huge part of water, so therefore we need to replenish that water. Who can safely say they are drinking 2 to 3 litres a day? Show of hands. I'm going to keep my hand down because I'm absolutely awful at it. So I need to continuously remind myself to hydrate and drink water. I drink loads of tea and coffee.
Oh.
Really? Well, sorry, actually that's a complete lie. I don't drink coffee and I never have. But I drink loads of tea. And so I was getting to, especially in those winter months when it's cold and I'm working from home and my go-to is a cup of tea, I found myself probably having between 5 to 7 a day. Yeah? And that was kind of something that I just fell into just from, I'm going to blame it on COVID, let's blame it on COVID. All right, but whereas prior to that, I was having 2 to 3. And then it just became a habit, and I was drinking lots of tea and coffee. Now that is, a lot of people go, well, that's just hot water, and you're adding a little bit into that. Well, that's great, the hydration part on the water, but you're actually dehydrating yourself through the tea and the coffee. Okay, so this is a lot of people will say, oh, well, you're hitting your water goals because you're having 5 cups of tea, and you can include that in your water, which fair enough, I get that. However, from my point of view, this 2 to 3 litres recommendation a day needs to be good water. Yeah, it needs to be. It can't be including tea and coffees because you've got that dehydration element in there as well. Okay. Also, just to build into that is accounting for exercise or extra heat, where your body, for example, is sweating, it's giving off the salts, and that needs to be replenished. Yeah, so build into that. It might be on an average day you are hitting your 2 to 3 litres, but for example today when we're going to go out and do a 1-hour boot camp outside, which water is suitable for hydration through that boot camp, but we need to make sure we're potentially upping the amount of water intake for the rest of the day to complement for those salts and etc. that we've used through that day. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Any questions on that? I'm going to bat through them. Okay, great. All right, sleep. Why do we need sleep? Recover, like that? Rest, perfect. So let's go a little deeper. So recover, what's that mean? Recover from what? The hangover the night before? Or?
No, from anything you've been doing, so it could be because of work and any stresses you put on your body.
Perfect, yep, so stress.
Exercise, recovery time.
Absolutely, and what are we potentially recovering? So you just spoken about 2 things there. Yeah. So physically, exactly. So physiologically and psychologically, yeah. So the brain and the body. Yeah, perfect, excellent. Sorry, Cal, you said for sleep. Rest. Okay. Why do we need rest? Why can we not infinitely just keep going? Other animals can. Why can't humans? Why do we need sleep?
We need that downtime, don't we? We need to calm down, we need to quiet
Why
down.
can't we sleep standing up? Other animals can.
I can sleep sitting up.
We're not as clever as that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sleep like that.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Awesome. So, you've just pretty much hit on all of those right there. So, relaxation, major part of our lives. Okay. And I hear about. I had a good friend. I'm going to name him James. He works in IT, and the hours he did when cryptocurrency is a prime example. Cryptocurrency first went boom. He was actually building a cryptocurrency, and the amount of stress and anxiety and pressure that went with that was astronomical. And therefore, he found that his sleeping patterns went completely out the door. And I think it was part and parcel. That actually worked a bit of both ways. But his sleeping pattern, he was operating on sometimes 2 hours a night. And then that just accelerated, ultimately, the exact opposite of what we've got on the board there. So he was getting more stressed. His metabolism was going all over the place. He's a diabetic, and so blood sugars were up and down all over the place. So suddenly a lot of negative impacts were going on purely because he wasn't getting enough of this. Yeah? And then that led to other things. And then he addressed it. He's like, sod all that, I'm going back to what is good. And a big part of that is sleep. Yeah? How many hours of sleep should we get per night? 7 to 8. 7. I always go with a solid 8. All right, I always have. Well, actually, in my teens, I probably went with a solid 12 to 14. That's
bad though when you're younger.
Exactly. Tim, get out of bed. Oh, that means I've still got 3 hours. So, yeah, massively important. Who in this room gets? Let's have a show of hands. Who gets 6 hours of sleep a night? Show of hands. Oh, wow. 7? 8? God, blimey. 8, God. Scott, you're grinning like a Cheshire cat. Do you get 2?
No, everyone went down at the same time.
Okay, yeah. So that is it's really important, guys, to make sure that we get sleep. And remember, we're talking about weight loss here, yeah? So what we don't want to do is the opposite of this one here, and I've got a slide on that later, is to stress the body out. This is your time. It's great that you get outside and you do a boot camp, or you go down to the gym, or you work really hard at work, but that's all utilising energy. It's all utilising, for example, muscles, tissues within the body that need that time to recover. Yeah. So if you were, for example, starting a new training program, and we've probably all been there, but you go from 0 to hero and you go, right, for the last 6 months, last year, last 2 years, I've done nothing, and this first week I'm going to do 5 boot camps, 3 weight training sessions, and then on Sunday, because I've got rest, I'm going to do a marathon, yeah, or go for a long bike ride. Then you know that term of hitting the wall? Yeah, the next week you're kind of like, I'm absolutely done, I cannot do anything, yeah. That's most probably because you've not thought about this. That's why you've got to build in your rest days, and also make sure that you have enough sleep so your body can go through all of these steps. This one, a really big one, yeah, rejuvenation. So you can go and do, for example, the boot camp we're going to do this morning, but tonight you need to make sure that you get a good night's sleep, because those tissues that you're going to work, that you're going to stress out, that you're potentially going to hypertrophy as a part of that, need that time. They need good nutrition, but they also need that time to adapt and then to grow and get stronger and develop. Does that make sense?
There's an afternoon nap after boot camp counts.
Do you know what? That is one of my, I was going to kick on to that next, is who has a nap? And when does a nap become a sleep?
Oh.
I was listening to the radio the other day, and they went on for half the day talking about what's the difference between a nap, a sleep, and a snooze. It went on. Apparently, if you get into your pajamas, it's a sleep. Fair play. So going into that, so does sleep all need to, in a 24-hour period, does it have to be one big mammoth 8-hour? Not necessarily, yeah? I have really changed my mentality over the last kind of 6 to 12 months in terms of when I'm tired, I will have a snooze. Yeah, Steve Jobs, massive advocate of that. Elon Musk, massive advocate of that. You've got all these people who will, when they get tired, will actually just go and have what they call a power nap or a snooze or whatever you want to title it. So is there a space for that? I believe absolutely. If I go for an hour, like the first 30 seconds, I feel like I've been hit by a train.
Yeah.
And once I get up after that nap and
Yeah.
actually move around, I do actually feel a lot better. It's better than sitting there, you know, at my laptop trying to do some work with my eyes closed. So yeah.
I'm going to say as well though that the same sleep pattern is really important, because I've been doing some reading about that recently.
Absolutely, and we're going to touch on that in terms of metabolism in just a second, so hold that thought and we'll have a discussion of that. Okay, snacks. This is a personal recommendation, I've always coached this, is have a healthy option as your go-to readily available, okay? Who loves biscuits?
Oh,
Who loves cereal? Sugary cereals.
Oh,
Exactly.
yeah.
Who doesn't love crunchy nut cornflakes?
oh, I love crunchy cornflakes.
With bit of
So,
on the top.
But so they are your go-tos. That is when the brain is potentially low on sugar and goes, right, and gets the feeling from the stomach, feeling from the gut, and goes, right, I need some food, I need to be filled up. And then the brain goes, I know what the body likes.
Cereal.
Exactly, so crunchy. And Kellogg's know you know that as well. Yeah, they know how your brains
Even
work.
Tesco's. Honey
McDonald's,
Nuts,
I know I'm not allowed to say, McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, they are all chemical experiments. Yeah, they know exactly what your body's going to be crying for. And if they give you a certain amount of sugar, for example, they're then going to be crying out for salt and other bits. That's why they put so much salt on your chips to dehydrate you, so then you go for the fizzy drink. Yeah? And it's an onward cycle. And then they chuck in an apple pie and a McFlurry, and that's just me. All right, so is to really combat against that, what we can do is have something readily available, okay? And what I mean by that, so one of the snacks that I make is I get dates and nuts and potentially some cocoa powder if you want that chocolatey flavour, okay? Put it in a blender and then I make a huge roll. It's about, I'd say about 3/4 of a metre long, okay? It looks like a poo, all right? Nutty poo. So, but what I do is wrap it up in foil.
Appetizer.
Absolutely, I'm really selling it here. Really selling it here. But put that in the fridge and it will last. And every time I get that little urge for a biscuit or something like that, or something like that, all you do is chop off a little bit. It keeps for a long time, and then you will find that, for example, you've got the nuts, you've got the sugar in there as well through your dates. If you like chocolate, you can add flavouring to that. You can also do it with apricots. But that is an easy go-to, so that will just give you, that's my solution. It might not be the solution for you, but what I'm suggesting is rather than having a pack of Hobnobs, love the chocolate ones, love the chocolate ones, okay, or your cereals, is just have an alternative that you know is better for you than that quick go-to. Normally if it's packaged or processed, it's going to be pretty shit for you. Yeah? Do we know that? Do we know that? Is that something that's pretty obvious? Cool.
Is cereal right as a substitute dinner?
Absolutely
Because I
not.
do that as well
Absolutely
a lot.
not. And so do I. When I get
Yeah.
back from rugby training
Yeah,
at
I
9
don't
o'clock,
do
I'm like, I
cereal.
need something, and a bowl of crunchy nut cornflakes or something like that, which is the potentially worst thing you can do. I'm going to touch on a little piece in terms of your carbohydrates, but shit is a term, I think I've said this before, in terms of sugar high insulin trauma. And when we were just looking at the slide on sleep, having a load of sugar before you go to sleep, good idea or bad idea? What do we think? Yeah, it's not good. Bearing in mind that the main fuel source for your brain is sugar. So you put loads of sugar into your bloodstream, it's got to go somewhere. It's either going to be stored or it's going to be send your brain into hyper mode. Okay, caffeine. We've kind of touched on this already. Okay. This is where everyone has it. So that's the other one as well for me, was always caffeine and drinking tea. I drink all the way through the day. And then I was wondering why I wasn't necessarily having a good night's sleep. Yeah. I brought in this rule, try not to take on any caffeine past 1 p.m. Doesn't mean you can't drink tea or coffee, it just means you have to have a decaffeinated option. Yeah. So if you have got into that lifestyle of cup of tea before bed, yeah, I had an ex-girlfriend and her mum loved a cup of tea before bed, and we used to sit up and chat over a cup of tea Not that I went to bed with her. but that was just something that she got from her parents, and then that just developed. So, but the recommendation would be caffeine up to 1 p.m. Okay, and especially for those who have just said that they don't get a huge amount of sleep. If you're finding a couple of tick boxes in what I'm saying, is think about that. Okay, give this a try. Okay, and that's one of the biggest takeaways for today. Is, as I say, it was meant to be 5 steps or 5 tips for weight loss with your nutrition. It was purely 5 to keep the volume down, because you're not going to take away all 9 points today. If you can work out and bring in 1 or 2, that is the best way to do it. Then in 2 weeks' time, you'll notice I'm recording this so we can recirculate it, so we can remind ourselves in 2 weeks' time, introduce another 2. Don't try and do it all as one as a blanket, because it won't happen. Yeah, does that make sense? So we just take 2 learnings for the next 2 weeks that we're going to focus on. That might be, in fact, I'd recommend one of your biggest wins is going to be this one. Okay, if you were to able to try not to take any caffeine past 1 p.m. and up your hydration for the next 2 weeks, I reckon in 2 weeks' time you'd be feeling pretty damn good. And it'd be interesting to have that same conversation with you about your sleep. Yeah. Already asked that question, and we've already touched on the hydration or dehydration aspect. Yeah? So what we don't want to get to is having a cup of tea with our crunchy nut cornflakes and then climbing into bed. All right? We're then getting a sugar high. We're getting the caffeine high as well, okay, which is a stimulant, okay, and then we're asking our body to shut down. Yeah? Sleep is a fasting period. Yeah? So we've got as I recommend, an 8-hour period there, 7 to 8 hour period there, okay, where your body is going to be fasting. It should be recovering, it should be sorting itself out, preparing itself for the next day, yeah, and also repairing itself from the day that has just been, or the training that might have just been. So sleep's really important, so let's not jeopardize it by having caffeine or sugary bits before we go down. Cool. Okay. Next bit. Who does this? Okay, so protein. Are you hitting your daily intakes? Okay, so this is a massive part in regard to growth and repair post-training, and that's why I've chucked it in. So we're about to go outside and do a boot camp. You're going to really stress out your body. You're going to potentially create micro tears in the muscles, that hypertrophy, and then to repair those, we need to be hitting our protein goals. Okay. The British Heart Foundation recommends 0.75 grams per kilo of body weight per day, which as an average is 45 grams for women and 55 grams of protein per day for men. Okay, roughly 2 portions of meat, fish, nuts or tofu per day. Quick show of hands, who would confidently say day after day they're hitting that? Okay, cool, so about half the group, which is completely fine, and that is, yeah, that is, but what I would recommend is if you're not, this will probably be for me, based on what I was just saying in terms of the 2-week journeys, is focus this on maybe journey 2. Okay, once you've sorted out, for example, your caffeine, your sugar intake, is then start to really look at your protein. To get the maximum response or reply from your body and get the most out of boot camps or whatever training you might be doing, yeah, these are the numbers you want to be hitting. Okay, so if you are looking to, in fact, let me ask you that question. Why is, beyond growth and repair, what are the other benefits of protein? No wrong answers. What do you think?
Energy.
It's not protein. No, protein will give you energy, but in extreme examples, for example, in the middle of the Sahara Desert, when you've used up all your carbohydrates and fats. Anything? Yes, that was just what I was about to say. So, protein will give you that sensation of feeling fuller for longer. Yeah, and so it won't be digested as quickly, so that message to the brain suddenly does not get you going, I need that bowl of cereal before I go to bed or when I get back from rugby training. Yeah? So what we want to do is think about when we have those proteins and making sure we've got good balance of protein coming into the body through the day. So have a protein for breakfast, have a protein at lunch, have a protein at dinner. Yeah? So you're keeping the body full, okay, for longer. So therefore you're not getting to your 11s mid-morning, you're at 3 o'clock afternoon, and going, oh, I need to grab some food, which is normally your shit foods, full of sugar, yeah? When it's someone's birthday in the office and it's doing the donut run, yeah? You don't have to have that because you're still feeling full from lunch, yeah? We used to, when I was working down in London, it was someone's birthday every day, and there were donuts everywhere. It was amazing. Loved it. So when we're thinking about our protein goals, also think about the quality of the proteins. Yeah. So what I've pretty much described today in terms of carbohydrates, proteins, you get that in the stop saying McDonald's, Burger King burger. Okay. You get your protein, you get your carbohydrate with the bun, you're getting your carbohydrates as well, and your vitamins and minerals to a degree through the vegetables in that meal or whatever they want to call it. Okay. However, that's completely different to having a 5%, let's say, mince or a lean steak or leaner cuts of meat, yeah, compared to the quality of the meat that might be used there. Yeah, does that make sense? So it's also think about what you're buying off the shelves. What is the quality? If it's there, am I going to eat it? Or, boom, if it's not there, I can live without it. Yo.
Are the protein bars any good or not?
That is a massive question. That is a multi-billion-dollar industry,
Right.
and the variance can be absolutely huge.
Okay.
If the issue I have with a lot of the protein bars is let me take a step back. The rawer they are, the better. And what I
Okay.
mean by that is, so for example, you can get the Eat Natural bars, and
Okay.
even some of those have got more sugar in than others. But they have, for example, stuff like nuts and natural ingredients that hasn't been refined too much. The issue I potentially have with some protein bars is they will have huge amounts of sugar pushed into them, or sweeteners, and that's purely, again, going back to a taste aspect.
Okay.
So often some of the stuff that is probably better for us doesn't taste as good because it's not been adapted, for example, within the factory or refined. That said, is a protein bar option better than, for example, having a Kit Kat, a Twix, a chocolate bar of any sort? Probably, yes. But have a look at the food labels, which is what
Just thinking when I do a 12-hour shift, how am I going to
Yeah.
get protein in?
So, great question. Hannah, hold up that bag behind you. So, I'm not pushing a product, but that is Gorilla Juice. And that is the reason we promote that. It's not the cheapest protein powder you will get, but what that does is that is ultimately a superfood. So that is going, if you spin it round, Hannah, it's got a list just at the bottom there of all the greens. So
I'll pass it
ultimately
round.
you are hitting your 5 a day in vegetables by having that protein powder. So you're not only hitting your vitamins and your minerals, but you're also getting a good degree of vegan protein that hasn't been too refined, okay, within that. The other great thing about that, I always mix that with water, so again, you're adding the hydration aspect to that. Obviously, there's lots of other products out there. If you are going for a protein powder, just make sure the quality is good. A lot of the protein, similar to the bars, will have sweeteners added to them and sugars added to them, and again, that's for taste. So yeah, just have a look at where you are. But as a potential, I don't recommend meal replacements. But if you were working long hours and you needed something quick to go through, that's the kind of thing I'd be looking at.
Yeah, it's normally the biscuits I go for.
Absolutely,
between
absolutely.
patients,
That's it. You're just making a nice, if you like, a swap for something that's potentially not good that's something that is better for you.
Yeah, thank you.
And if you're training at the same time, you're getting the added benefit of the protein there as well. Okay, cool.
Fills you up, yeah.
Really simple on your carbohydrates. Okay, I've already said it once, and I'm gonna swear. Is that right? So, shit is a technical term when it comes to carbohydrates. Sugar high, insulin trauma. What we don't want to do when we have our biscuits, if this was my whiteboard, our blood sugar goes up through time very, very quickly. Then we'll have that insulin trauma released from the pancreas, and then that gives us a sensation, oh, we need to eat again, we need to get our blood sugars up, and then it becomes a catastrophic up, down, yo-yo all through the day. Yeah? What we'd like is exactly this, which is slow releasing. So these are your whole grain foods. okay, your whole grain carbohydrates, which are going to give a longer, slow releasing, sustained release through the day. Okay, again, more than not often than not, they're going to have a decent amount of fibre locked into them, so they're going to give you that sensation of feeling fuller for longer. They're not going to get through the gut as quick, and yeah, so it's going to be a lot more slow releasing. So when you get to your 11Cs, when you get to your 3 o'clocks, when you get back from rugby training at 9 o'clock in the evening, you're not grabbing for the quickest thing that's going to make your brain feel happy, but an hour or two later you can be hungry again. Does that make sense? So target slow releasing. So here, prime examples of that would be whole grain carbohydrates, sourdoughs, great option for these. You're also going to get a great amount of carbohydrates through your green vegetables as well. So making sure where that 5 a day comes in is a really, really important. Also, just to talk on those, on your vegetables, is they are literally keys for unlocking all the other bodily processes. So if you do not have sufficient vegetables in your diet, your body will not be able to process, for example, protein. Okay? It will not be able to process certain hormonal deliveries within the body. Okay? And that's when the body starts getting having to rely on different systems, or jeopardising your actual health because you haven't got the keys, the vitamins and the minerals to unlock those bodily processes. Does that make sense? So yeah, that when we're talking 5 or 7 a day, boom, I just say in terms of your diet, vegetables and fruit in abundance, get them on board. People say a lot of sugar in fruit, yeah, that's great, but there's also a lot of great benefits within them as well. So I prefer people to be eating them rather than not. Yeah? Okay, so this pretty much sums up a lot of stuff that we've been speaking about. Okay, so just generally in regard to your metabolism is schedule your meals. Someone said it, was it you, Amanda, who said timing of...
Talk about time of sleep.
Timing of sleep, so yeah, which builds into this, is just start, if you're not already and you feel like you're kind of floating or just dropping from one to the other and you'll just grab stuff on the go or go to sleep when you feel tired or blah, blah, blah. Just start thinking about adding a little bit of structure or schedule to your day, yeah? Otherwise, if, for example, with our meals, if our body doesn't know where the next meal is coming from, it will guess, it will store because it doesn't know. Your metabolism is up, down, all over the place, yeah? So your body will go flipping out. I don't know what's happened over the last 2 weeks, but I'm going to have to store energy because tomorrow I don't know where my next meal is going to be, yeah? And therefore the metabolism, that's stored potential fat, blood sugars, can really up and down and yo-yo all through the day, yeah? Whereas it would be much better if we know, okay, what we're going to do is 3 or 4 meals through the day. I'm going to bring that structure into my life. 3 or 4 meals today, the body goes, oh, cool. Okay, well, I know I have breakfast before I go to work at 7:30 in the morning. I'm going to have an 11 o'clock snack or blah, 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 which is going to be a lovely, healthy snack. Then I'm going to have my lunch at 1, 2 o'clock, and then I've got my evening meal to look forward to as well. Yeah, the body just gets used to that, so we know exactly what is coming. The body's not having to second guess. Does that make sense? Yeah, cool. So eating at similar times. Don't leave yourself hungry in the evenings, okay? So this anchors back to what I was saying just in terms of having those foods, so your proteins, giving you that sensation of feeling fuller for longer. Having your slow releasing carbohydrates, giving you that sensation of feeling fuller for longer. So you're not late at night or in the evenings then having to grab, and I keep on saying it, grab those sugars, whether it be biscuits, whether it be cereals, whether it be, I don't know, whatever. Okay, yeah, and then just be aware of those blood sugar swings, yeah, up and down. Because once you do it once, your body's just going to be demanding more and more and more, and then it becomes a vicious tornado. Cool, alrighty. Stress, just want to hit on this one. Do you allocate any time in your day currently for clearing the mind? Okay, and this is a really, really big point, because if you live a very stressful life, and stress can come in many different ways. Okay, so you can have psychological stress, you can have physical stress. When we go out and do boot camp, we're putting your body under stress. Okay, so that recovery, that relaxation time becomes really, really important. But one tool that we often neglect is our brain. and that is make sure that you build in clear mind time. Okay, just time, whether that be meditation, whether that be going for a walk, whether that be coming and doing exercise, that is your clear the mind time. That is completely fine, but just make sure you factor that into your everyday life. Yeah, and try and do it on a daily basis as well. Yeah, you are the most important thing to yourself. You need to look after that. Yeah. Just give you a little insight into where that relates to weight. Stress releases adrenaline and cortisol. Yeah, we know that excitement feeling, or that well, whether it be excitement, but when we do get stressed, that panic feeling where the whole body blood pressure rises, heart rate rises, yeah, adrenaline is flooding the blood, okay, it's a negative effect. We don't want to continuously be in that stressful state, yeah. And with the use of energy supplies or boosting energy supplies, when they're not used, we have the danger of then storing them. Okay? Do people understand how fat cells work? New? Okay, so under your skin, you have a layer of what is called adipose tissue, and they are fat cells, ultimately. The body can naturally increase the number of fat cells you have. Okay, so what will happen is you've got millions upon millions of fat cells around the body, okay? They will fill, okay? And when they are full, okay, they will then duplicate. They will grow more fat cells, okay? Which will then store more fat and then develop, okay? The negative thing about that is the body naturally can reduce the size of those fat cells, but it cannot get rid of fat cells. Okay? So when you hear about, for example, tummy tucks and when they take tissue out of the body in regard to fat, that is exactly what they're taking out. They're taking out that adipose tissue, that extra fat cells. So have you ever seen people, for example, that have been obese at one stage and then have lost a huge amount of money? Huge
That as well.
Huge amount of body fat, but they can't get rid of what looks like excess skin. Yeah? That is that adipose tissue. Okay, so just remember that when you're eating or you're storing fat, is the body can duplicate those fat cells, but it finds it very, very difficult to take those away. Okay, so you will always have that tissue within your body. So if you look after yourself, if you maintain your weight, if you keep on doing it and living a healthy lifestyle, you're not going to get to that point where you are taking on those extra fat cells or duplicating those fat cells. Does that make sense? Yeah. Cool. So, simply, when shopping...
Can I add one?
Yes?
Don't go when you're hungry.
Absolutely. Yeah, great point.
Yeah.
Great point.
It's the worst thing to do.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. So, have a look at the labels. Do people know how to read food labels? Yeah? They have made it a bit easier. And food labels are really, really complicated. Alright? So, and they intentionally do that, especially if those foods are full of crap. Yeah? If they, also what I've been finding recently is there's certain supermarkets that will hide the food labels. And that is purely because there's probably information in there that they do not want you to know. Okay? So things to look out for, traffic lights, that's a really, really helpful step. It tells you the majority of the picture, it doesn't always tell you the whole picture. So for example, it could not be telling you whether there is hydrogenated fats or trans fats, which the body does not want. So if you're ever looking at a food label, look for hydrogenation or trans fats. If it's in there, steer well clear of it. The body does not know what to do with it. But it will give you a good inkling as to whether that food is good for you or not. So pay attention to those. Don't fall for claims on packaging. So one of the things is low fat, low sugar. Yeah, these things will more often than not, if it's coming in a packaging or it looks like it's gone through a factory, they will be just refined in a different way. So they've added sweeteners for taste. So just be aware of that. Do not fall for the claims on packaging. And if it looks refined or adapted, it's probably not the best for you. Yeah. So always look for example, the non-refined, the more natural. As I say, I'm kind of thinking there's companies that use natural in their title, which doesn't always mean they're natural. Okay, but just be aware of that when you are looking. All right. Any questions? That is a real breeze through. This has been recorded, so we will circulate this out to you. A lot to take in half an hour. But if there's no questions, should we get out of boot camp? All right.
Cool. Let's do it.
Thanks, Tim.
Well done, guys.
Strong.